Hi there, this is Dave Markus, your Saskatchewan provincial broker, and this is Contracts 101, How to Write an Offer. Here I am in web forms, and I have pre-filled an offer to purchase just so we can kind of go through the items that are mandatory and what all matters. Starting off in the top right-hand corner, there's a spot here where you can put your contract number. You can put anything you want in there, numbers, letters, whatever you like. I've just chosen my initials and some numbers. Just don't duplicate two. You aren't actually required to have a contract number, but it's good to have for being able to tell offers apart, especially if there's counter offers. Um, the first thing you're going to see in the offer is who's writing the offer. So I've got myself, David Markus, eXp Realty, writing the offer. You do have to have your brokerage name and address in there. Next section, it asks who the buyers are. So in this case, it's Barry and Bonnie Buyer. Note that the address of your buyers does need to be in here. That is a mandatory element of the contract. Don't miss it. Then we're making the offer to Steve and Sally Seller in this case. Again, their addresses are a mandatory part of the contract. That has to be in there. So we've got them at 706 Express Avenue. And we've got the listing agent, in this case also happens to be me, David Markus, eXp Realty. Again, we've got the address in there. Next piece you're going to see is the legal description. You do have to have the legal description of the property as well as the civic address of the property. So that's that first part of the offer. Basically, who's involved, the agents, the people, and don't forget the addresses. The second section is the actual numbers involved in the transaction. So in this case, we're going to make an offer for $270,000. I'm assuming my clients have got a $5,000 deposit. Now, deposits. So if the client hands you a check when they write the offer, you're going to be checking this off, deposit by check. You'll notice this says receipt of which is hereby acknowledged. So if they're handing you a deposit, this is the line it goes on. However, if your client says to you, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you the deposit tomorrow, well, then you make sure you actually have it on this line down here, because we don't want to say we've got it. We want to say to be received within 2 business days. Oh, let's just add the word deposit in there here. Okay, so they're not giving me the deposit in person. They're going to come around and give it to me tomorrow. Then I'm going to put it on 1.2E instead and deposit to be received within 2 business days. So that's very clear on the offer. In this case, my clients are putting 10% down, total of 27,000, 5 in deposit, 22 balance of cash, and 243 becomes the new mortgage. That's what it works out to here. The next part is the conditions to the offer. So your first condition on the offer, 2.2A, well, it's a condo. It does say for resale condos that Schedule C comes into play. My example is not a condo. So the first hard type condition is always approval of a mortgage. That's always in there. You can just drop a date in there. If your client doesn't have a mortgage condition, that's fine. You can just not drop a date in there. That's okay. Some people even cross that line out if there's no mortgage condition. But most deals have one. So dropping a date in there is a good idea. And then 2.2B is going to be the balance of your conditions. So in this case, I've added a Sask Energy gas line locate. I've added a professional home inspection, and I've added a current property condition disclosure statement. So those are fairly standard conditions. You'll notice I don't have any terms in here. So that's an error a lot of agents make, is they will drop terms in this section. Section 2 is very clearly for conditions, not for terms. Now, as an example, people always say, well, where do I put my terms? Well, where you put them is on a schedule. So in web forms here, you'll notice at the top, there's this little button that says add page. If you need to add a page, you just click the button. It only takes a second and you're in business. So I did that. It automatically dropped the document number in there. So this is a Schedule A contract. Schedule to the contract between Bonnie and Barry Buyer and Steve and Sally Seller. And I've put the terms in here. So when you've got a condition of a disclosure statement, you're usually going to have a term that goes with it. Once accepted, property condition disclosure statement is incorporated into and forms part of the contract. So that's the term that goes with the condition for the disclosure statement. Those two go hand in hand. And then in this case, I've also thrown another example of a term in here. Seller agrees to have the broken bathroom window repaired prior to possession. The reason I chose that is because this is not something you want to have as a condition, because if they're fixing the window a day before possession, you don't want to be removing conditions all the way then. You definitely want to have your conditions removed long before possession, at least 2 weeks preferably. So this is an example of a term, something that it's not a condition of the offer, but it is expected to occur prior to possession. So those are our conditions and our terms. We go to part 3 of the offer. You'll see part 3 of the offer says terms. Additional terms, and I've got a checkbox here, are set out in the following Schedule A to the contract. So again, that is the Schedule A that we just reviewed with the terms. Next item is the closing date, and in this case I've put 10 a.m. on January 1st, but I'm actually going to change this because my recommendation to you is that you don't put possession dates on a holiday. January 1st is a holiday. If you do put it on a holiday and you run into a problem, you will not be able to get the lawyer's office on the telephone. So when my clients ask to do it on a holiday, I generally say, hey, let's just do it the next business day. So we'll bump it ahead to January 4th. Of course, you do have to follow your client's lawful instructions, but explain to them the advantage to not doing it on the holiday. Generally, they will be good with that plan either a little bit before or after. There is a spot for the time of possession. I've put in 10 a.m. A lot of realtors will leave that blank. It is a field to be filled out, so you really should put a time in there, but you will run into a lot of them that are blank. You can see there's a bunch of hard typed information on, who's responsible for what. You can read through that. You should know this stuff very clearly inside out and be able to explain it to your client. But I'm not going to go into that detail today. Warranties and representations. So part 6.2C of the contract is where you're going to put any inclusions. Now again, this is a spot where I see a lot of agents drop terms into. This is not where terms go. Please don't put your terms here. This is for your inclusions. It says the purchase price shall include land, buildings, and attached goods unless otherwise stated herein, and include the following unattached goods. So these are unattached goods that are attached to the home, or included in the sale, pardon me. So that would be like fridge, stove, kitchen, bar stools, TV in garage. Hell, you could even put the cat in there if you want to. So those are the inclusions that aren't attached to the home that you want to have included in the transaction. Then you've got your standard checkbox of potential items that are pretty common. So in this case, we're including the water heater and the water softener, and we're including the central vac and attachment. But turns out they don't have a power nozzle for the central vac, so that's not included. So you just fill that out as appropriate. Most of this information will be on the listing. You may see some of these things when you're at the listing. You may want to check with the listing agent about it. Again, a lot of hard typed information we won't go into. Everything about deposits, how they are refunded or returned or not refunded, depending on if offers are accepted or rejected or fall through after removal. All that information is built into the offer here in part 6. So you don't have to rewrite any of that stuff. It's already there for you. Sorry, part 7, not part 6. Part 8 of the offer, then we've got when the offer is being written. So in this case, I'm writing it at 10 a.m. on December 2nd, and when the offer is open till. In this case, I put down 8 p.m. December 2nd. So be careful that you don't give the listing agent too tight of a timeline here. Really good to have a conversation with the listing agent before you send them the offer. Just make sure, hey, are your clients in town? Are they going to be able to have a look at this today? If you set a deadline that's too tight and they want to accept it, you're just going to be in a boat where you're writing a new offer now, just because the client couldn't get to it fast enough. So make sure you're in communication with the other agent. Give them a reasonable timeline. Certainly that timeline could be longer or shorter depending on the transaction. If it's multiple offers, if you're trying to add some pressure, if you're trying to create different negotiation strategies, but be aware that if you give them a timeline they can't make, it's just kind of a waste of time. So Lastly is the acceptance, which you're not going to be dealing with when you write the offer, but when you send the offer to the other side, we certainly hope it's going to get accepted and they're going to be signing off and dating. So that is the offer to purchase. Hopefully you find this useful, and I look forward to reviewing all your contracts. Thanks.